Now we're getting into the story that you're going to read for tomorrow. Fortunately, I did not give away all the details for you. You need to read this. Trust me, you need to read this. It's a little bit long for a short story. I think it runs about 20 pages, something like that. When I say tomorrow, I mean Monday, of course. But guys, it's fabulous. This is an incredible story. And it's incredible because he does Hemingway about as perfectly in this story as any story he ever wrote. All right, first he sets off an idyllic setting for us. So they sat there in the shade where the camp was pitched under some wide-top acacia trees with a boulder-strewn cliff behind them and a stretch of grass that ran to the bank of a boulder-filled stream in front with a forest behind it or beyond it. So again, what did we see? Not a lot of words, not a lot of detail. It doesn't tell us about the colors of various different things. It doesn't use a lot of adjectives, but we understand what this environment looks like. He really brings it alive and pulls us there. So the story has some of that kind of beautiful, idyllic writing in it. He gives us a fascinating, multifaceted view of the safari event. Now, of course, in the story, the title character, Francis McAmer, is on a safari with his wife, Margot, and they have a guide, Wilson, who's taking them on this safari. And they are going to learn some things. They're going to go out there and discover a little bit about who they are, though, of course, they don't know that to begin with. But as we're going through this, he describes the safari. This is a guy who's been in a lot of safaris. He even tells it from the point of view of the lion. The lion turned his heavy head and swung away toward the cover of the trees as he heard a cracking crash and felt the slam of a .30-06 220-grain solid bullet that bit his flank and ripped in sudden, hot, scalding nausea through his stomach. Now, yes, he uses a few adjectives here too, but remember, this is a guy who knows exactly what it feels like to be shot. He's experienced it. So when he describes this from the point of view of the lion, he's telling us something that we really, most of us don't have any access to. We don't understand what it's like to get that. To hear something and not know what it is, and suddenly you feel this bite, and then this searing, burning pain, and then the sense of nausea that comes at the end because your body is reacting. It's revolting against this horrible pain that it's feeling. So he brings us the nature, and he brings us the animals themselves and the landscape. Okay, now we're going to talk about the story. Hemingway seems to feel more sympathy for the animals than he does for the hunters. Animals are dangerous, but not willfully cruel. Very important. Animals are dangerous. They can be vicious, ferocious, but they are not willfully cruel. They do what they do for a purpose. Meanwhile, Margot, his wife, Francis McAmer's wife, is cruel. She takes advantage of her husband's perceived weakness. Now, she perceives her husband to be a weak man. One of the reasons she perceives that, and she also takes advantage of the mercenary aspects of Wilson, the guide. She uses or attempts to use these faults to hurt them. Okay, why does she think that he's weak? Well, one of the things that she does is she has affairs and makes them obvious enough to know that he knows about them because she knows that he is too weak to do anything about it. And so she's just perpetually cruel to him. And she superficially can be very nice and sweet, and then as soon as there's a moment something really happens, she'll just come in and just twist the knife a little bit. Now, Wilson is drawn with a little more sympathy than Margot, but not a lot more. He is not viewed as a really good guy either. He is, for the most part, an observer, and an observer is a device that the writer uses to give us insight into the various characters' minds, okay, to peer into the minds of the other characters. He's not an innocent. and not simply a spectator. He is not an innocent, and he is not simply a spectator. In addition to his affair with Margot, he develops the morality, such as it is, of the story. Now, there's a very loose sense of morality in the story. Not the morality that you would expect. I already told you that she has a lot of affairs. Well, one of them at least is with Wilson. So he's not a good guy in the story. Francis is a victim, though. This is how Hemingway writes him. Remember, Hemingway loves the strong man, the guy with force. And this story is about Francis McAmer going from being a self-inflicted weakling. That's how Hemingway sees it. His weakness is somehow self-inflicted. So he's a victim of his own weakness as Hemingway sees him. He is aware of his wife's infidelities, but afraid to do anything about it. So he has an opportunity to kill a lion. They go out on one of the hunts. He has an opportunity to kill a lion. The lion is wounded. The lion is suffering. And he is supposed to go up there and kill the lion because that's what you do when you're on safari. And he can't do it. He doesn't have the stomach for it. Even though the lion is no real threat to him anymore, he just can't pull the trigger. And actually, during the hunt itself, he shows some fear a couple of times and freezes, and he just can't do it. And so it comes up to Wilson to finish the job. Why? Because you can't leave a wounded and dying animal suffering. That's the coup de grace. The coup de grace is a French term from war from way back, and it literally means the blow of grace. To strike a blow for grace. Because if somebody is dying or is about to be put through a long and horrible torture, it is a show of grace. It is mercy to kill him at that point. That's where the phrase comes from. So he does this coup de grace. He kills the lion. At this point, Margot kisses Wilson on the mouth right in front of her husband, just to emphasize her cruelty. That's why Hemingway has it happen there, to show just how cruel she really is. Her husband is suffering. He has gone through this traumatic experience. And what does she do? She goes up and just throws her affairs right in his face. And he doesn't know what to do. Now, a little later on, he has another hunting event, and there's a buffalo, a water buffalo, and he stands his ground, and he fires. He misses. And Wilson fires, but the buffalo is charging them. It's wounded, by the way. He's charging them. Wilson misses too. He stands his ground, and finally, he takes this great shot. The thing is charging. It's about to kill him. He takes this great shot, takes down the water buffalo. He's like proved his manhood. Now, just prior to this, he's already started to say some things that says he may be starting to find himself. But he kills the water buffalo. And at that moment, he is truly happy. He's been indicating that he's fed up with Margot and her affairs and her mistreatment of him. And here we see that he's finally developed the intestinal fortitude. That's a phrase I like to use. Basically, the backbone, the strength, the guts, intestinal fortitude, right? He's developed the guts to finally step up to her. And we know at this moment in the story that it's over for Margot, at least in his life. He's going to move on without her. And she stands up in the truck with her rifle and blows his head off. And then, of course, she cries to Wilson, "Oh, it was an accident. I was going to kill the water buffalo because he was going to kill my husband, my dear husband, whom I cherish and love," right? You know this, right? And Wilson says, "Yeah, I ain't buying it. Don't worry. I'm not going to turn you in." Because he is amoral. Wilson is completely amoral. And he is basically saying, I know what you did is like the most horrible thing that can be done, but frankly, I just don't care. And I don't want to go through all of the difficulties with law enforcement of having to indict you and stuff. It's just going to tie me up and keep me off the trail, which is where I make my living. So don't worry about me. I'm not going to turn you in. And to read the end there, to make sure you get it, the intestinal fortitude to take control of his life. He is perhaps for the first time ever actually happy. From the car, Margot shoots Francis through the head, ostensibly, okay, told all that. protect her husband from the water buffalo, but Wilson makes it clear he believes it was intentional. And although he promises he won't testify to that effect and that he'll back up her story, he reveals to Margot her own futile cruelty and shallowness. I choose my words pretty carefully. She has this cruelty, and it is a futile cruelty. It is a purposeless, a useless cruelty. And of course, her shallowness, because she's just the epitome of the shallow person. So Frances McAmer's happy life was very, very short, mere seconds. But Margot, on the other hand, and probably Wilson also, will have no happiness at all. Hence the title, The Short, Happy Life of Frances McAmer.